Big weekend for fights in many ways. It was a fight taking place in Nottingham, which is just about as good as it gets. An unbeaten world champion, making the 10th defence of his title, somehow enticed out of his adopted country against Carl Froch, back from being on the road for a couple of years and about to have fight number 8 in not just a good sequence, but I've been arguing for the last 2 or 3 years, the best sequence by any world champion of consecutive fights ever by anybody. Go and have a look at Sugar Ray, Leonard, Robinson, Duran, Hagler, anybody, Ali, any of them. None of them have had this series of fights, okay? And suddenly it's going to continue and continue in style when Lucien Bute arrives in Nottingham to try and defend his IBF Super-Middleweight title against former double world champion, going for his third attempt at winning the world title, Carl Froch, who I'm delighted to say joins me on the line now. Good afternoon, Carl.
Afternoon, Steve.
Carl, when you look at your series of fights since Pascal, where would you put Bute in that list?
You've got to put him up there with the top level fighters, purely because he's an unbeaten world champion. But you can't give him the full accolades of the Jean Pascals and the Jermaine Taylor and Mikhail Kessler, even, because he's not fought that level of calibre of opposition. But he's answered every question that's been asked of him, and he's done it in style as well. You know, he's not only won, he's knocking most of them out. He's unbeaten in 30 with 24 stoppages, I think. So you've got to rate him very highly, but you can't get carried away with him. But it doesn't mean he's not a top fighter, because he's not fought at the very best. Because it's showing everybody now he's prepared to leave his home turf, come to my backyard and take me on.
Yeah, I mean, he's not fought the best consecutively, but he's still fought decent fighters. I mean, he's not gone on the sequence you've done, but as I said in the intro, who has gone on that type of sequence? But what he is he's relatively fresh. I know he's only a couple of years younger than you, and you've both had the same amount of fights. But if you look, say, back over the last 3 or 4 years, take out the last round against Andrade, and he's had a decent, easy run, whereas you've had, what is it, 7 consecutive 12-round fights? I mean, obviously Taylor ended 12 seconds early, but you've had a much harder run. And I think I did the maths. It's something like 84 rounds, plays 38 in the last in the last 3 years or 4 years.
Yeah, it's a big difference, especially at world level. And
yeah.
That might be the difference in the fight, the experience and the ring craft at world level could be the deciding factor. That and the fact that I've got my home crowd behind me, because that always gives you a lift. But I've got to take this guy very, very seriously, because he is a really, he's a formidable force. It really is.
Carl, do you think that those last 7 fights have taken a toll on you? I'm just talking natural wear and tear, whether it's a washing machine or a human being.
You know what, if I'm totally honest, I don't feel worn out because I don't take many shots. Obviously, the Kessler fight, I took a couple of digs I didn't need to. And against Pascal, that was a 12-round bit of a war for at least 6 or 7 of them until I got back behind my boxing. But I'm not the kind of fighter that, Ricky Hatton, for example, is a brawler. He has to get his face in the mix, and he has to take 2 shots to land 3. And, he got knocked out quite badly late on in his career because of that style of fighting. I'm a boxer, I'm tall, I use my range. I'm a world championship medalist. I beat Olympian in the world. So I can box, and I've got technical ability, which you've seen against Arthur Abraham. So because of all that, I've not had the hammer-ins, and I've not had the wars and the aging fights that you're talking about. But I've obviously done the road work. I've done the rounds, as you said earlier. I've done how many 100 and something. How scary that is.
I think it's 84. In your last 7 fights, it's 84. And his last 7 fights, it's something like 38. It's something like that, yeah. And one or two of those, he never broke a sweat. Or 2 of those, he never broke a sweat.
No, exactly.
Of course.
I mean, I never got touched against Abraham, and the Durrell fight was a world-class fight, a world-level fight. But he ran and held for 12 rounds. So I got out of that fight with unscathed, really.
But you still have to prepare for championship rounds, don't you? You still have to do it. Still, you've prepared hard and long.
Yeah, too right. And I'm 34. I'm no spring chicken. I'm not 24. But I do feel that the experience at this level has set me in good stead. I mean, if you look at Floyd Mayweather, and he's usually involved in quite long fights, 12-rounders, and he has big breaks between the fights like I do. And when you've got plenty of rest, and when I rest, I don't keep running and keep assaulting the knees and putting pressure on the ankles and elbows. So I get plenty of recovery, and I'm only 34, and I'm a very, very young, fresh. You know, I do the weight easy. I live cleanly. I don't go out and get drunk. I don't eat silly foods. I don't flare up in weight between fights. It's all factors that affect your longevity. So I feel I'm in a good place physically. I'm certainly in a good place mentally because of all the experience. But physically, if I'm totally honest, I'm not feeling worn out at all. I'm really not. If I was, I'd tell you.
No, I'm just thinking more of just natural wear and tear. I'm not necessarily thinking of, you know, suddenly you're just feeling tired all the time. I'm just thinking that it just has to, in my opinion, take a toll. Or, I mean, you know, as much as I praised them and as much as people in boxing have respected you for the route you went down, because it is such an unconventional route, and you can't find it in anybody else's championship fight record. It just doesn't exist what you've done, and that's going back through time. My feeling is that just inevitably those rounds, those fights, have to take a toll. But if you're telling me you feel fresh, you feel young, you don't feel worn out, then I'm taking your word for it.
Yeah, that's what I'm telling you. And on Saturday night, I need to back up the boast and do the business against this unbeaten kid from Canada. He's got his Canadian citizenship now. He's actually Romanian born.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, but they love him there. They absolutely love him there. Now, I'm just going to ask you, just quickly, Carl, thanks for your time today, mate. I know that it was tricky tracking you down, and I appreciate that. That last fight, that last round of his fight with Andrade, his first fight with Andrade, okay, the ref should have stopped it, shouldn't he? Or let me ask you this, do you think the ref should have stopped it?
Yeah, I do. I think the ref was a bit out of order on Andrade, because he was out on his feet, and the ref, I mean, 20 seconds had passed. Bute could barely stand up, and the ref counted to about 6 by the time he'd finished telling off Andrade for not standing in his corner, which was ludicrous. As soon as the fight was called to box again, the bell went. So that really is a knockout loss as far as I'm concerned. And he won it on points because of the politics. But he'd have learned a lot from that, and he'd thought, right, I was tired there. But it still happened. It's still a knockout, smashing in the last round, and I knocked out cold as an amateur.
Sure, by Golovkin, I've seen that,
Which doesn't usually happen at that level.
No, that's true. No. The one thing that I did find about the Andrade fight is that it just showed you this guy. I know he may have fought one or two guys that were not that good in title defences, but when it comes to heart and guts and survival instincts, Bute's not short in any of those departments. That's for sure, Carl.
No, that's right. He stayed on his feet. He survived. He hung on. He did what he had to do. He didn't fold and give up. But he was totally gone in that fight. But then he got the rematch and he beat the guy in 4, and he's untouched since then. So he's probably a better fighter for it.
Well, listen, Carl, it is, as I said, seems like a long while ago now. Not just a fascinating fight. It's one of the best fights we've had here for a very, very long time. It's a rare fight. It's a rare one in every way, shape, and form.
Why is it always me that has to keep delivering these fights?
Carl, I don't know.
Any fight would be nice.
Everyone. I mean, you know, see, even the Dirrell fight. I know what you're saying about that. It wasn't a hard, brutal fight, but you had to fight like stink to stay in that because of his tactics. Let's not forget that.
His speed, his ring craft, his skill. I was concentrating for 12 rounds.
That's what I'm saying. It was a hard. It was a hard fight in different ways. Kessler was a hard fight because you had to go in the middle of the ring, but Abraham was a hard fight because you had to concentrate for every single second. And I remember Rob giving you a serious rollicking about the end of the 11th and 12th because you were desperate to have a fight, and Rob was saying stick with the pattern. Even the Johnson fight, which I thought you won clearly, even though one judge gave it a draw, that was still a hard fight simply because of his physical toughness.
Yeah, very physically tough and strong. No, you're dead right, but you know your boxing, Steve. You know you can call it well. And I've not been in the fights where you come out and you look like Rocky out Rocky 2 or Rocky 1, but I have had the hard grueling mentally and physically. I've had a good mixture of the fights, but I think this is why I'm the fighter I am today.
Yeah, which is, and no one's disputing that. Carl, listen, thanks so much for your time.
Yeah, no problem. Always a pleasure, Steve.
What a